hey guys. No clones. The breaching shotgun has been used for a long time, and there have been multiple iterations of the breaching shotgun. Right here we have the 870 MCS breacher, and right here we have the world famous MASTERKEY. In today's video, we're going to be going over the history of the MASTERKEY, but more importantly, we're going to talk about the application and how it was used. Now, John, you served in. Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, I was in the military, and we use shotguns every now and then, but it was
John downplaying his military service every time.
So it was always a shotgun very, very similar to this. Yeah, we also use the Remingtons, not the Mossbergs, but I've seen several different variations. We really liked this version that was slick. I know there's like the fold out.
Oh yeah,
Battlefield 4.
The Serbu shotty.
Yeah, but that one we actually really did not like. The reason why is because these things, they're kind of cumbersome to carry, so guys oftentimes would just throw them in like a dump pouch or something. And if you have like a big handle on it, that really gets in the way. So it was just something like this, like a 3+1, just super simple, tiny little shorty shotgun.
It's beautiful. So John has a lot of breaching experience. We're going to be leveraging that today. Me, I served in the Air Force Special Warfare. John was a Ranger. We have to talk about it. I mean, you're literally wearing the flag. The point is, right here, the 870, the MASTERKEY that we have undermounted was a really interesting, I guess we'll say innovation, was an interesting kind of step in the breaching world. We're going to be showing how it works, how it compares to a standalone shotgun, and more importantly, we're just going to be showing how awesome it is, because there is nothing more iconic than liberating Burger Town with a SCAR and a MASTERKEY.
Yeah, you got to bring Raptor to the the meat locker to keep him safe.
There you have it. So today on Grand Thumb, we go over the MASTERKEY, the key that will open all locks.
The key to your heart.
So obviously the MASTERKEY is typically made by Knights Armament. It's not that really that wazoo of a product. It's an 870 shortened, and it is uses an M203 mounting attachment system. Now this one is a clone from the following company right here. It's hard to pronounce their name. I'm terrible at it. I'm not going to try because, well, it's going to be embarrassing for me. So understand that although the MASTERKEY used to be unobtainable, it is now very much so attainable due to the fact that, well, a couple companies are making awesome clones now. So big thank you to them. Let's get on with the video. But before we get into that, we of course have to thank the biggest sponsor of the channel. That is Primary Arms. If you're looking to get awesome optics at a great price, go and check them out. But more importantly, they now have optics being made in the US, most notably the HTX1. Go and check them out. They are amazing. We love them, and they support the channel. And if you order from them and you say in the comments, hey, I love Grand Thumb and I love Starburst, you never know. It could happen, right, Sawyer?
Oh yeah, and I also heard that they're going to include a free 320 with a tourniquet.
When you, to quote Prince of Egypt, there can be miracles when you believe. Now, moving from there, of course, if you're looking to be more American, Henry Repeating Arms. They have lever actions, they have a revolver, they have all the cool stuff, and more importantly, they have like hundreds of variations. Go check out their catalog to become, quite frankly, more American. Nothing more American than a lever action rifle, and more importantly, to go to henrythumb.com. Some really exciting opportunities that we can't talk about here. Go and check them out. If you want to get better at shooting, we recommend Dry Fire. Man, just turns your weapon into a dry fire machine. Go and check them out. Finally, All Ammunition is sponsored for by AAC. Big thank you to them. That being said, talk is cheap. Breaching shotguns are kind of expensive. Let's get into it. Wow, how inconvenient is this right here, John?
Yeah, it's a locked door.
Sucks. There's a lot of ways to defeat doors. What can you do? You can lockpick, you can use a tool, you can force it open. Or we could, of course, shoot it open. This is where breaching comes into play. So shotguns are one of the many tools that you can use in addition to explosive breaching, many other methods. Today, it's all about breaching shotguns. Now, a lot of people believe that with a breaching shotgun, whether it be the MASTERKEY, the 870 MCS, you're simply taking a slug and you're firing it. Is this true, John?
No, it's the easiest way to tell if someone that was in the military is completely full of themselves, like lying, is I've heard people say, yeah, I breached with a buckshot before. No, you didn't, because pellets would have went
everywhere
into your face.
So your breaching rounds are actually specifically made for breaching. They're made to minimize collateral on the other side. As much as we all like to joke about throwing a frag grenade into a room and being like, eat this shit ass. The fact of the matter is that warfare is complex. There are bystanders who do not deserve to die. And if we're being a discerning military, a professional military, we want to limit collateral damage. There are reasons why we enter rooms while we safely open them as safely as possible with a breaching round. These breaching rounds can be different materials, but essentially what they'll do is they'll be, for example, a compressed zinc slug that will disintegrate as it goes through the lock. So the first thing that we're going to go and that we're going to be talking about is basic breaching techniques using a shotgun, but more importantly, we're going to compare the standalone versus the MASTERKEY to explain maybe why the MASTERKEY never caught on that much.
Yeah, there's pros and cons to everything. Kind of like underbarrel grenade launchers. It's really
cool.
Yeah, really fast into action, but it makes the gun very, very cumbersome.
With the MASTERKEY on this, the thing we have to talk about, go ahead and bring it out. We're both strong guys. It is heavy. And more importantly, it's kind of awkward to grip, because with the grip forward, you're not really going to be gripping out here. That's quite a lot. And then down here, it's not the most comfortable. I know that
trying to hit like a pressure pad or something.
Yeah, you got to like tape it a little bit lower. So it kind of adds a little bit more awkwardness to the gun. But like John said, it is quick. So let's talk about our basic methods of breaching. Now we have a real treat. We have our very own Ranger showing us basic breaching techniques, and we'll be showing you the difference between these two. John, take it away, my friend.
Yeah, so with your breaching shotgun, just remember 45 and 45. So that's 45 degrees in and 45 degrees up, right? And what you're gonna wanna do is figure 8 stack the shells. So you can go boom right here and then right above it, boom right there. And you want the figure 8 to be slightly overlapping. Kind of like mowing a lawn. You know, whenever you're mowing the lawn, you're supposed to overlap a little bit so you don't miss anything. Same thing with this.
John, that was a really good explanation, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
That was surprising given your Army background.
Yeah, well, it's the knuckle dragging way it was explained to me, and it made sense. So it's usually 3+1 in the tube, but guys usually run with the tube empty. But it gets kind of tricky because sometimes you might have this right here, like a deadbolt, and you got to get through both of them. Just try really, really hard to hit this with your third round and last round, because you don't want to be clicking shells in, you know, like you're a comp shooter right outside the breach while there's a bunch of angry guys with guns in the center.
Now there's going to be a question. So John, you showed us 45 and 45. This, I think most people know this, but I've seen people be like, well, why don't you just do it where it's not so awkward? So when you 45, you do it from right here. And of course the answer is you're right in front of the freaking door.
Yeah. And
you don't want to get shot. So if you notice, John is always in our notional cover. This would be a wall right here, a wall right here. So if we have the doorknob on this side, that means we're going to have to be angling the gun in. Thus, where it becomes a problem. So do the same thing with the MASTERKEY.
This will be slung, and then you're going to have to like unsling it, and then it's just, yeah, it's kind of terrible if I'm being honest.
It's a little bit more than what you'd want. It's nice in that it's doable, just not the best. Now, with all that being said, let's see what it actually looks like in practice if you were to actually fire a door breaching round through this door utilizing the MASTERKEY. So right here we have our door. We're going to be going for just the doorknob for this one. We'll hit the lock right after. We do have civilian legal breaching rounds. These are from S&B. Very cool of them. It is possible to get better ones, a little bit harder. So we have these ones to see how they perform. They should be fine on this lock. We're going to find out.
3, 2, 1, action.
Kind of got it. Okay, so this is a civilian legal round. As you can see, this is why you should be ready to fire a second round. Because we're doing the slow-mo, we took a pause right here. We'll put the second round through it. We'll see if that will blow it open. And then after that, we'll be using a much spicier round on this guy right here. We'll see how they look and perform differently. Second shot with the civilian legal round.
Action.
Looks like we got it. like we said, with the civilian round, we're not really getting nearly as much. So you should definitely be prepared to hit it with that second, maybe even that third round to be sure. So that is a limitation of our civilian breaching rounds, but still they are effective, and it is much safer than using buckshot or slug, which can, depending on the impact, come back at you. Never use those to breach. But I'm sure people have done it.
So you've probably seen like every action movie ever that has a breaching shotgun, or guys in military training, they almost always throw a flashbang into the room right after they shotgun breach. The whole point is, so you just made a bunch of noise. The element of surprise is gone. You're trying to regain that surprise by throwing a very loud explodey thing into the room right after. Not necessarily a frag, unless you know there's of course enemy combatants in there and no non-coms. But yeah, that's the reason why there's almost always a banger right after a shoddy drill is you're just trying to regain that element of surprise.
And obviously bangers are hard to get. That being said, like the IWA bangers are pretty good. It's going to be something. So
Better than nothing.
Yeah, better than nothing. I understand the limitations that you have here. Or with a little bit of crime, I guess you could get your hands on some bangers.
Make some really cool ones.
Yeah, everyone actually has free ones. All you have to do is get your hands on them and they're yours.
Yeah.
Next up, we have a very spicy breaching round. We're going to be firing through the lock right here to show the difference between spicy versus non-spicy rounds. Let's see how it performs in comparison to our SMB.
Action.
Well, there is a difference. So I guess we'll say go make your own breaching rounds. Now, with breaching, the cool part is if you're about to blow a lock and somebody opens the door, what happens, John?
You can just immediately gut shot them with a 12 gauge.
You know what? 12 gauge really is the most versatile of all guns. It can do everything, whether it be, you know, hunting birds, breaching doors, or absolutely putting people into the ground.
Also, of course it's not buckshot like it would be a breaching shell, but at this distance, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, let's go ahead and let's see what that looks like on paper if we were to dump, let's say, 3 rounds of our breaching rounds into them. Go ahead and try that out. John, do you want to go ahead and give me a nice little up?
Shooter ready, stand by. Up.
Well, you know, they are made to disintegrate and all that, but I'm pretty sure they're just going to disintegrate your heart, just like you have, John.
You're probably going to see daylight on the other side of them.
It's going to be violent. Now, here's the best part. If you notice, the recoil really isn't that bad on the 870 because you have a full gun attached to it. It's a lot of weight, and it really makes the recoil quite negligible. Shotgun reloading kind of sucks already, and having it attached to your M4 just really doesn't make it that great at all. It is a little bit tough. Okay, now, John, we usually shoot, but John lifts like 600 pounds at a time, and you kind of tweak your wrist a little bit.
I was holding like 1,500 pounds in one hand, you know?
Well, what do they say? There's 2 types of rangers, strong and smart.
I'm neither.
Well, here's the cool thing. Check out how minimal the recoil is on these guys right here. So I have the gun down. If I'm going to go fire, really is not that bad. And like we showed, otherwise, sometimes you need to be at a weird angle. So even at an odd angle, firing this, it really isn't bad recoil at all. A lot of people are afraid of firing a short shotgun because they figure it's just going to be awful. Breaching rounds are really not that recoil intensive, even the military and police ones that we fired before. John, the recoil really isn't that bad on them at all.
If you hold it correctly, it's not bad.
If you hold it correctly. One thing to never do with a shotgun, especially a breaching shotgun, is seal it. So, what we mean by that, have you seen anybody seal a barrel against the door frame?
No, because it's always been at an angle, so. No.
There's a reason we do it at an angle. I mean, to get the lock better. But if you seal that barrel up against a door frame, you're essentially turning that into like a jet engine. It's going to push it back. Who's that one dude who nailed themselves in the face?
Oh yeah, there was another team leader, and he held the shotgun not in the best way, and he got like a bloody nose from it. So
you never want to give yourself a bloody nose with a breaching shotgun. But here's a cool thing. Besides using breaching rounds, these can fire all of your normal rounds because, well, it is just a 12 gauge Magnum shotgun that is cylindrically choked. Let's go ahead and let's see what we can do with some full power rounds. In moments of emergency, you don't have time to hesitate. Now, today we partnered with TWC Health, who is sponsoring this video. Now, here's the point. A lot of the meds that you need in a survival situation just can't be got easily. Now, in the case of TWC Health, they have an advanced field kit that is specifically prescribed just for you to have those emergency meds when you will need them most in a situation where you probably never thought you'd need them in the first place. Let's talk about it. Now, right here in the field emergency kit, we have a waterproof, military-grade, dust-proof kit, and it is going to contain all of your meds right here. It's prescribed from a physician on their staff, and it has a ton of different things, from anti-parasitics to antibiotics to tons of other meds that can treat over 60 different types of ailments or emergencies. Not to mention non-addictive pain relief and, of course, a generic EpiPen. Now, the question you might have is, well, aren't these going to go bad within a year? Well, you know what? The military actually did a study about that. You're simply going to look up PMC 7040264, classic government with their name. The point is, when they tested all the different meds that the military had stockpiled over the years, they found that, well, 15 years past the expiration date, they were about 90% of them were effective. Now, this isn't me saying, giving you medical advice, rather saying that Big Pharma is a business. So the point is, yes, you should replace this as often as you can, but it's not as loss of a cause as you think. Now, in addition to that, each kit includes an 85-page guide written by their professionals to treat tons of different ailments. Point is, go to twc.health/Grantham. Using the discount code Grantham, very easy to remember, you're going to get over $120 off, as well as free shipping. Honestly, guys, you just need a med kit. And in addition to that, you need prescription meds. That's just the way life goes. You should have one of these. You should have something. This is probably one of the easiest ways to do it. That's just proper and ready for you. Go and check them out. We can't thank TWC Health enough. Now, let's get back to the Master Key. First thing we're going to be shooting is full power buck. See how that does. You can put anything into these shotguns. However, that being said, if you want to shoot drones with this guy, shoot skeet and all that kind of stuff, not the best. The barrel is short. There's no choke on it. So understand that there are limitations. You just need a shotgun specific for that stuff. But let's fire a little bit of buckshot through this guy right here. Someone, you ready?
Ready.
Not bad recoil at all. Did you see that? Let's try some slugs. John, do you think I can hit the steel target down there?
Yeah, aim a little high. Probably hit it just fine.
So, based off where my... Okay, let's try this. Okay, I saw that. You know, that's a full power slug too. Try the head right here. You know, the Master Key is really fun.
Great.
John actually smiles enough now that we don't even need to do the smile cam anymore. You know, I'm actually kind of blown away that we had pretty good consistency with the slugs. But with that being said, let's go ahead and let's try 2 targets using buckshot, see what we get. Still shotgun. It is a long length of pole, so if we're holding it traditionally, that is kind of long, but it works. Generally, reaching, obviously, you're kind of off board, or you're the opposite way when you're firing it and you're using the magazine to hold as a grip. So it is a little awkward if you're shouldering it, but definitely still doable. That being said, like we talked about before, the cool thing about shotguns is you can use all the different types of shotgun rounds. So for some giggles, we're gonna use a little dragon's breath. How they describe it, enormous wall of fire for 75 yards, 4,000 degrees.
Well, it's good, like if someone breaks into your house, then you go into your living room and you shoot at the ceiling fan so it disperses it everywhere. So now no one can have my house.
Including you.
Yeah.
It's like mutually assured destruction.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, let's be, we'll fire one at the paper target right here. I'll John Wick, see what happens. Okay. Let's see if it is 75 yards of fire. Ain't no way.
No, maybe 50.
Yeah, maybe 50. 50. Is that 75?
No, not at all.
Not even close. Well, still cool.
Yeah, it's cool to like shoot buckshot out of it and slugs, and I guess dragon's breath too. But the only real military application, at least the past like 20 years or so, was ballistic breaching. Now you got drones and stuff like that, but that's really why this fell out of favor. We might see a renaissance of master keys now with the drone threat, but that's why people stopped putting them.
They would definitely have to be made differently with some type of because on such a short barrel, even with a good choke,
dispersion.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be an issue. Definitely, there's some new technologies that are going to be emerging. It would be interesting if we did see this come back because some types of rounds or specific chokes of these really short barrels are developed that made them effective against drones. Times are changing, guys, but if there's one thing we can say for sure, it's that a shotgun, especially one breaching rounds, is always a good thing to have, whether it be urban or even rural, because sometimes you just need to open a door quickly. And there's nothing like opening a door with a shotgun.
Really, ballistic breaching is one of the least preferred methods. You want to use explosive as much as possible, but the thing is, one thing that can really limit you using explosives if you're in a very urban environment or like obviously inside a house, because if you set off a charge while you're in the house with it, it might not immediately put you out of the fight, but when you do like 4, 5, 6 breaching charges, then like everyone's going to be retarded at the end of it.
We were working with an unnamed NATO country, and one of their guys was doing explosive breaching, and he put too much on the interior door, and it lifted the roof partially off the house.
Nice.
Yeah, it was cool. A little overpressure, never did anything besides damage my brain.
It helps with the rating.
We've done a lot of shooting with the MASTERKEY. We're going to do a lot of talking as we go into autistic breakdown. Let's get into it. So we've done a lot of shooting. Now we're going to do a lot of talking. We're going to autistically break this down because you know what? This is my favorite part. Now, obviously, this is not a Knights Armament Company MASTERKEY, who originally made the MASTERKEY. Rather, this is from Tier 1 outfitters, and they have come together to make this, to bring this to market, because you know what? I think everybody wants a MASTERKEY because it is so iconic, it is so cool. Remember the old Nova Logic games, Delta Force? How cool those were, how you had the MASTERKEY, or even Call of Duty. It is just a very iconic setup. So, the cool part of the MASTERKEY is it really isn't that difficult to put them together. I mean, you need to make a couple parts, obviously, and need to make some modifications, but essentially what you have is a Remington 870 that has been shortened. So it holds 3 in the tube plus 1 in the chamber for a total of 4, but typically in a breaching roll, a ballistic breaching roll, which is what these are made for. They're typically carried with 3 in the tube and an empty chamber for a little bit of safety insurance. Now, the barrel is obviously shortened as well. It is cylindrically choked, and we have a simple shot setup. Now, in addition to that, you can see that this does use the M203 mounting and attaching hardware. So anything that is cut and that is ready for an M203 will also fit the MASTERKEY. So whether this be a government profile or a SOCOM profile barrel, those are both going to work. Now, kind of starting with the mount right here, the one thing that we do want to talk about is it can use the typical M203 mounts that you see. So, for example, we have our M4 shortened with an M203 right here, and it can use either this hardware, it can use the quick detach hardware. Those will also work. Now, I have chosen to use the mount that came from Tier 1 outfitters because, you know what, it works really well, it's simple, and it's a little bit, in my mind, easier to put together. It's not a quick detach system like some of the M203 mounts are, but it works really well. Now, moving down to the shotgun here, the coolest thing that you can see is you do have a provision to ensure that while you're breaching, that your fingers are not going to slip past the end right here. You can see it right on the end cap, just like the original MASTERKEY. Now, one thing that you do see on a lot of breaching shotguns right now is some type of standoff device, but we don't have these on the MASTERKEYs or even on many of the breaching shotguns currently in use by the military. We have an actual 870 MCS right here, factory, and as you can see, there is no standoff device. What is a standoff device? We'll pop up a photo. Essentially, like we talked about before, when you are lining up to breach with a shotgun, you do not want that muzzle flat against the wall because you're going to turn your shotgun into a projectile. Essentially, you have sealed it, and all of that propellant and gunpowder is going to act like Elon Musk's rocket, and it's going to shoot that shotgun right into your face or body. And we don't want that. You're going to look stupid, just like John's story, and we never want to look stupid. So standoff device is always helpful, but on these older breaching shotguns, you really don't see them nearly as much. Now, the breaching shotguns that we have right here can fit either your 2 3/4 or your 3-inch Magnum shells. Remember, 3 inches is a Magnum. So those are all going to work. Many of your breaching rounds do fit into that 2 3/4 category, but many of the really powerful rounds, like the Hatton rounds or the Royal Arms rounds, which we have a bunch of Royal Arms rounds right here, do fall into that 3-inch category, simply because you want a lot of power to break through a lot of the tougher bolts and doors that you'll be seeing. So when we're talking about the MASTERKEY, something that we're going to have to do is talk a little bit about the history. These came about in the 80s, and it was essentially a lot of the same thought that you had with the M203. The thought was, what if instead of carrying a standalone M79 grenade launcher, I merely attach it to my weapon? Same thought with breaching shotguns. Delta was like, well, what if instead of carrying a breaching shotgun, we had a breaching shotgun nice and handy? Which is how the MASTERKEY was born. You have seen these in combat throughout various times and places in history since the 80s, but they never really caught on. Let's talk about why they didn't catch on, the application, and more specifically, maybe as a civilian, how it might make a little bit more sense. Okay, now if I'm going to be talking about this, I'm going to tip the butt in the sky. First thing I'm going to do is pull this little NT4 off, because you know what? I love the NT4, but my God, you see how easy that came off? Gotta love it. As much as I love the NT4, I already have a lot of weight out here, and that's the first thing we should talk about is weight. And here's the thing, this isn't just some lightweight shotgun. This is just an 870 that they did an M203 mount to, and they slapped it on the front of your gun. That just adds a lot of weight to the end of your gun. So compared to like an M203, which is pretty handy in a lot of situations, the MASTERKEY really falls into one situation that it's used for, which is ballistic breaching. Because of that, you end up having a weapon that is, it's not useless, but is quite superfluous in many different situations compared to an M203, where a grenade launcher, generally speaking, in most encounters is very handy to have. A breaching shotgun, always at the ready, is just a lot, which is why you end up seeing a lot more of these detached breaching shotguns used, simply because they can be moved out of the way, they can be stowed in a pack, put in a dump pouch, put on a magnetic holder on your plate carrier. They can get out of the way compared to, I just have it on my rifle, I am always going to be maneuvering with this. And as cool as it looks, it is a bit of a pain. Now, you might be asking yourself, why do we have the 870? As opposed to like a Mossberg 500. I'm a big fan of the 870. The dual action bars makes for a very, very reliable, very, very robust breaching shotgun. In fact, 870s have been used in this shortened configuration for a very long time in the breaching role, simply because, well, they handle the recoil, they handle the forces of those breaching rounds so well. Now, one thing that I do want to talk about is a lot of people have said that it's awkward to shoot, and it kind of adds a lot of recoil. I disagree. I think that the MASTERKEY is quite easy to shoot, and so we're going to show how that recoil is with some of our full power Royal Arms loads that are basically your military breaching rounds. And of course, nobody outranks safety, especially me. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to hit that D press so we can unlock the gun. We're going to go ahead and throw in our high brass breaching round. This is a yellow cap, which if you know anything about it, is more than enough to breach many doors. So a lot of times, like we talked about, when you're coming up to your doorway with your breaching shotgun, it's not like I can simply put the gun right up into it. I often have to be off kilter when I'm firing it. So let's see what that looks like. So I'm gripping onto the magazine and I'm firing that full power round. As you can see, it really isn't that bad at all. We'll show you that to you guys again, just to prove that it's not that bad. I'm going to shoot the other direction now to show you what that looks like. Again, I'm off kilter, firing at an angle. Really is not bad at all. And if I continue and I try shouldering that, just to show you guys that that recoil isn't bad in the shoulder as well. Did you hear that round traveling downrange? Sounded cool. The point is, breaching shotguns really are not that difficult to handle. A lot of people kind of get all scared because they're firing a short-barreled shotgun, they're firing a high brass load, and they're like, oh man, this recoil is going to be awful. They're not bad. Shotguns are quite gentle, and that is especially true of your breaching rounds, despite the fact that you are shooting a very powerful, zinc or whatever material they end up using in that particular breaching load. So don't be too worried when it comes to the recoil. In fact, I find the recoil on the MASTERKEY to be a lot less than your typical 870 MCS breacher, because you have so much weight attached to that shotgun already compared to a much more lighter weight when it comes to this standalone guy right here. Now, the problem that you definitely run into having the shotgun attached is going to be reloading. So typically, when it comes to breaching shotguns, you're going to have extra shells that are going to be on your carrier somewhere. Oftentimes, I'll wear this carrier right here from Sword just on my left side so I can get to those breaching rounds. But after I've extracted those rounds from my side, it really is kind of a pain to, you know, get that shotgun kind of lined up and ready to go. I find that's a lot more awkward compared to like the breaching shotgun, where it's much easier to maneuver. So it is kind of more of a pain to reload the MASTERKEY, in my opinion, than the standalone. Probably another reason why it never really caught on. Another big reason is going to be in ballistic breaching, like we talked about with John, and John's more knowledgeable on breaching than I am. However, I'm familiar enough in the fact that I was trained in the military, and that's that oftentimes you need to get some really weird angles. Depending on the door type, what you're trying to defeat, sometimes you have to really get that shotgun at a weird angle, and it's a lot easier to maneuver this guy. There are times when you have to have that guy upside down. It's just so much easier to maneuver rather than having it on your entire rifle, which kind of really brings us to the point, which is having a bunch of weight out front on your gun on something that's not used constantly, like a grenade launcher, just really fell out of favor, and you ended up having that breaching shotgun detached from your weapon. But with all that being said, it is still very easy to operate. So this is your typical 870. So as far as running it, once your trigger is depressed, then you can unlock it. So typically how these are carried is empty chamber, trigger's already done. So that way, when I come up to the door, all I have to do is pump it. Obviously now I have a round in the chamber, fire. As soon as you fired, depending on how the breach goes, whether you need to put 1 or 2, you're often going to leave that fired hole still in the weapon, so that the next time you go to get the weapon ready, you're going to bring it out, you're going to rack that empty hole out, live one in, but generally no live ammo in when you are coming up to an objective. There are, of course, changes in SOPs, but that brings us to where we are. Now, with all that being said, I've been talking a lot about military application when it comes to the MASTERKEY. When it comes to the civilian application, I actually do think that there is more of a market for it. And the reason for that is, well, you know, depending on what's happening, whether it be Chinese paratroopers, NATO soldiers, blue helmets, Antifa communists, I don't know what have you, communists being the worst, you just never know what you're going to have on you. Obviously in the military, you always know you're going to have your full kit on, you're going to have your breaching kit, explosive kit already, but you might not always have time to get that stuff ready to have it on you. In that case, I do see a civilian application for a breaching shotgun because, well, you might not always have your kit on you. As much as I advocate always having your kit ready, just might not always be the case that that is practical. In that case, having a breaching shotgun attached to your gun actually does make a little bit more sense in a civilian role, especially if in that role you find that you're going to have to be in a position where a breaching shotgun, specifically ballistic breaching, is going to be employed. So for a civilian role, I actually do like the MASTERKEY quite a bit. In addition to that, it just looks cool. But what I think is so interesting about the MASTERKEY is, although it is almost primarily used as a breaching weapon, it can still fire the full contingent of typical loadings that you see from a shotgun, whether it be slugs, as we showed earlier, whether it be buckshot, birdshot. Just understand that this weapon does not have the capability to pattern nearly as well, or even close to nearly as well, as most longer barreled shotguns with better chokes. That's in a combination of a shorter forcing cone, a shorter barrel, a cylindrical choke, no ability to change chokes. It just isn't suited to that bird hunting, to the anti-drone, to that skeet and trap. Although that being said, shooting skeet and trap with this, if you guys have done it, that would be super cool. Please send me a video of it. Now, moving back down to there, the loading gate on the 870 is very easy to use. I've always been a fan of the loading gate. It is super easy to get your rounds into the chamber. Understand, depending on the country of manufacturer, you might actually not get 3 rounds in there. Like, I know the Turkish shells are slightly longer, so you end up only getting like 2 in there. So understand what you're dealing with as far as what ammunition you have. Now, when that weapon has not been fired, so I have an empty chamber here, but let's say I have a live round in there, and I go to try to pump that, it's not going to go. That's by design. If I need to unlock it from this point, I have this little lever right here that I can depress that allows me to unlock the gun. Otherwise, the only way the gun's going to unlock is after I fire it, then I can unlock it, load the next one. Otherwise, it's not going to unlock. As a quick note, the reason for that being, once you have that round in the chamber, the last thing that you need happening to you as you grip that gun and pull it in your shoulder is that entire assembly coming back and shucking out that round that you have loaded. So there is a method to the madness. Now, going back to here, we do have a safety. Typically, the safety was not employed on a breeching shotgun. It's kept safety off because we have an empty chamber. But if you really wanted to, simple crossbolt safety, it is a bit of a pain in the ass to actuate, so I typically keep that off. Trigger on the MASTERKEY is actually quite nice. 870 just have a nice trigger. So first time in forever, we're going to go ahead, we're going to ghost this trigger together. Hopefully this is empty, we'll find out. So putting some pressure into it, about a millimeter play. About a 3-pound let off right there. Once you've racked that off the reset, short reset from the reset, 2 pounds. Very nice trigger. So I really do end up liking the MASTERKEY quite a bit. I understand the non-application in many scenarios, but on a civilian gun, guys, I really do see the point of it. It is an extra 1,800 bucks to get this on your gun, so it is a bit of a pain in terms of cost. That being said, if you do have the funds for it, and in your application of where you are, you see a need for it necessarily as a practical tool, I definitely think the MASTERKEY is something that is very cool to have. I know that me, personally, I've always wanted to have a MASTERKEY because, well, they look cool, and I like the idea of it quite a bit, just not so much when I have it on the end of my gun. So guys, go and try out the MASTERKEY. I think you're gonna be surprised at how gentle it is recoil-wise, how easy it is to operate. Obviously, if you can get your hand on the MCS instead, that's standalone, I think it makes more sense overall. But like we said, there is an application for everything. Go and check them out, guys. Thank you so much for watching. We always have a good time on this channel. Final thing for you guys is gonna be, you know what? Get out with your boys and train. Our advice is, weather's warming up. Time to get out with the boys, have a good time, make memories. If you got your kids, bring them with you. Start teaching your kids. Guys, thank you so much for watching. We got nothing else for you except for way cooler things coming in the future. And of course, Sawyer, you are restarting the Patreon, aren't you?
Oh yeah, that's gonna be a party.
All the exclusive behind the scenes content of me and Sawyer being idiotic is gonna be there. Go and check it out, guys. Thank you so much for watching. We got nothing else for you. Take care.